Hello, I hope you are doing great. Today, you will learn some quick tips on how to develop in our auto-generated system, AGS for short. Now, before we continue, please remember to visit fairplaytube.bdicostarica.com, click the Buy Me a Coffee icon, and select a donation of your preference. This will help us keep the videos and products free for you. Now, let's continue. Let's go to Visual Studio and let's see the code we have so far. Okay, so here is our auto-generated system, which is published in GitHub repository, and you can take it as a base. Now, remember that the main purpose of this project is to automatically generate most of your CRUD code, the code for creating the entities data, to read them, to update them, and to delete them, right? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to go to the database project and create the tables. In this case, this is the latest table that we created and it's named product, right? Very important. The names of the columns and of the properties in the models need to follow some conventions. In this case, the ID of the tables needs to be named in the following format. The name of the table suffix with the word ID. So you can see in here for product, the column name or the primary key name is product ID. Then we have all the properties, the name, the image URL, and the unit price in this case, right? So this is the product table. Now, once you have created the table, what you will go and do is create your data access models. Now, the way to do this is to automatically generate it using EF Core Powered Tools. So you right-click the data access project, click the EF Core Power Tools, Reverse Engineer. If you do not have it installed, you need to go to Extensions, Manage Extensions, and look for EF Core Power Tools. Then you install it. After you have installed it, you will be able to see this option. Okay, then you click the Reverse Engineer, you select in the database project in the drop down below, you make sure that it is on Entity Framework Core 6 for the moment. Click OK. And then in here you select all of the tables that you want to create the data access for. In this case, let's just add all of them. Now, personally, I rather to use data notations, so I always mark data notations in here, right? In here, I like the models and the context to be in their own separate folders. So for models, I just put models, and the context I put it in the data folder. So you click OK, and it will start generating the code for all of the tables or objects that you selected. And you can see in here we have the data folder and the models folder with all of the data access models. Now, the other thing that you need to go is you need to go to the models project, and in here you will create a folder which is going to have the same name as the table. So if you created a table named product, the folder needs to be called product. Inside that folder, you will need to create two classes: the create product model and the product model. The create product model will have most of the all of the properties, all of the same properties as the data access model, except for the ID, which is set to be automatically generated. I forgot to mention that in the database project, the primary keys need to be marked as an identity, so the value is automatically generated by the database. So yeah, you have the properties, right? And in here you need to add the validations that each property needs to have, and the validations that will be executed in the client side, in the web application specifically. So yes, this property is required, so we don't want to send anything to the server if this property doesn't have a value. If this property is higher or longer than 50 characters, we don't want to send it. It's an invalid value. If this property is not a valid URL or is not in a valid URL format, we don't want to send it to the server, and we want to validate all of that in the client side, right? And the product model is basically a copy, or yeah, the product model in this case is basically a copy of the product class in the data access models. You can add whatever else you need in your personalized user interface, right? But this is basically for reading the data. Okay, the other thing that you need to do is you need to go to the services project, and in the services project you need to create a new class which is going to have the name in the following format: the name of the table suffix with the word service. So for example, for product, here we have product service. It needs to be a partial class, and you need to decorate it with service of entity, and you pass the name of the entity this service is going to automatically generate the code for. In this case, since we are using the product service for the product entity, we pass the product. Very important, you need to add this as a constant to the entity names so you don't hard code the values, or so that you can reduce the amount of hard coded values you have in your system. Then you need to create the API controller. So basically you go to the server project, you go to the controllers, and you add a new controller, but you select API controller. Now it needs to be named in the following format: the name of the entity suffix with the word controller. It also needs to be a partial class. So you see it's a partial class, and the name is product suffix with controller. Of course, it needs to be decorated with the route, with the API controller, and you need to decorate it too with controller of entity, and you pass the name of the entity. Controller of entity receives a second parameter, which is going to be the type of the primary key in your data access entity. This is because that type is being used to automatically generate some of the code. For example, when you need to retrieve items by a given ID, so we pass as a parameter, we require the actual type that you pass in here. Okay, so that's it for the controller. The other thing that you need to do is you need to go to your server startup.cs, and your startup.cs you need to add the service you recently created. So if you just created the product service, you need to do services.add transient product service. The other thing that you need to do is you need to go to your AutoMapper profiles, global profile class, and here you need to add 3 lines. Create map from the create model to the data access model, from the normal model to the data access model, and from the data access model to the normal model. Yeah, so basically in this case for product we have create product model to product, product model to product, and product to product model. That will make it for the server side. Now you need to go to your client service, to your client services project, and here you will need to create a new client service class, which is going to have the name in the following format. The name of the entity suffixed with the word client service. So for product, you see that in here we have the name product suffixed with the word client service. It also needs to be a partial class, and it needs to be decorated with the word, or decorated with the attribute client service of entity. Again, you pass the name of the entity and the type of the primary key. If you want to automatically generate the pages, what you will do is you go to the pages, you create a new folder, and this folder is going to be named with the same name as the entity, and then you create a new text file named AutoGeneratedPages.txt, and you mark it in the build action as a C# analyzer additional file. In here, you will add the actions that you want to create. So in this case, create and list, and it will create those 2 pages, the one for list and the one for create. If you see the list generated page, this is all automatically generated, and see that we even add things like pluralizing and using humanizers, so the titles and the text are more user-friendly, right? And here are all of the values that are being shown, and we even added the delete action in the list page. In the create, you see this is the create, and we even have the loading indicator or the spinner, right? Which I believe I forgot in here. No, it's in there. Okay. The create, you see that it actually has again the data annotation, the validation, and all that, right? In the case of images, for example, if we go to, let's see, store, I believe. This one, I need to fix it, it seems. So let's see. Yes, I need to add in here image or image URL. Need to compile it again. I might need to restart the Visual Studio for this change to take effect. Let's see. Okay, let's restart Visual Studio. So C# code generators, as far as I know, a lot of the compilation process or output is actually stored in memory. So there are certain changes that require you to restart Visual Studio so they are visible and take effect. So let's compile again and let's see if my changes were recognized. Let's go to models. So let's see, a lot of things in here fail, and let's see what actually failed. Duplicate image URL attribute. Oh, okay. So I already had that image URL attribute in this specific um, in that specific item. So yeah, going back, I'm sorry, to the pages, the auto-generated page. So in the create, you see that it requests the image URL, right? But in the list, you will see that it detects if it has that image URL or if a property has that image URL, it will render it using an anchor, right? With an anchor pointing to the image URL, right? Opening a new browser window, and inside the anchor, it shows the image. Now, the other thing that you need to do for the code to work is you need to go in your client to the program.cs, and in here you need to register the client service, right? So you need to do builder.services.add_transient and add the client service name in here. And if you want, you can go to the share project navigation menu and add a new item in here pointing to the list page of the new entity. So for example, if you add something like, let's say, customer, you will add customer routes list. And here you put customer, and of course you will need to create this. Is a static class, and all of these static class, the only thing that they have is two constants, one for create and list with the respective route. So for customer, you will name it customer routes, and in the create list, you will change this from product to customer. And that will basically make it for you to quick develop in our auto-generated system. So you can use this to automatically generate most of the code for CRUD applications, and this will really speed up your development process. Thank you very much and have a great day. Please remember to visit fairplay2.btecoserica.com. Click the Buy Me a Coffee icon and select a donation of your preference.